Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. As you all know, the economy, wherever you are, is turning to be pretty shitty at the moment, and there's no sign of it easing off, as it's all going to get a lot worse before it starts getting better. Those of you over in the United States will know that your economy is getting more shittier than over here in Europe, and it's all to do with energy sources, as the price of gas is going through the roof with petrol, i.e. gasoline at $6 a gallon, and I can very well see it going up to $10 a gallon. This was not a new thing coming around, as the warning signs were visible several years ago, or at least several months ago. As looking around, I found this. As you can see, it's from CNBC. It says, after a huge year of growth, the US economy is about to slam into a wall, as it's done now. This is just a prequel to the storm that we're currently experiencing. It says US economy last year grew at its fastest pace since '84, but the memento isn't carrying it on into 2022. And it says the first quarter of the economy may not show any gain at all and possibly show a loss in GDP. That's because of the stupid sanctions against Russia. As the picture shows, this was done on the 8th of December last year in Brooklyn, in New York City. I don't know if Brooklyn is a poor area, but those people, those Americans, look those quite poor, and that old lady there, she's probably struggling to make ends meet. Anyway, the Al Jazeera, this was written on the 26th of May, or a few weeks ago. As you can see, it says US economy shrank by 1.5% in the first 3 months of 2022. So they've hit the wall and it's starting to shrink. But US consumers and businesses kept spending at a solid pace. Now, are these US consumers US women or US men? Remember, a guy doesn't really need much to get by, but a woman always needs more stuff to impress other women. So it's a case of who's been spending the money, and is it money that they haven't got, i.e. buying stuff on tick. And it's just a big article about businesses and economy and this, that, and the other. And the source is Associated Press. In the meantime, higher borrowing rates appear to be slowing at least one crucial sector of the economy, the housing market. That's the next bubble to go. Last month, the sales of both existing homes and new homes showed signs of faltering, worsened by sharp higher home prices and a shrunken supply of properties for sale. Looks like we're going to go back to the housing crisis. You know how all that turned out. The American private bank, mistakenly called the Fed, a more aggressive pace of Fed rate hikes, a tightening of fiscal conditioning, and the ongoing war. It's not a war, it's a military intervention in Ukraine, and China's zero-sum strategy increased the risk of hard landing in 2023. Now, as you know, the global market depends on an energy supply. This was written yesterday, as it says, the global markets are tanking ahead of a huge week for central banks, which coincides with this and this. This global stock markets are falling sharply after May's US inflation print reignited fears that central banks will be forced into aggressive monetary policy tightening, which means rising interest rates, which will have a ripple effect right through the US and then Europe's economy, which is why Biden is getting worried, because that's why this was written yesterday by the Wall Street Journal. He's off to Saudi Arabia to kiss MBS's hand and ask him to pump more oil to alleviate the energy crisis. The Saudis used to pump $10 billion 10 million barrels of oil a day. It's gone down to 6 million barrels of oil a day because the Saudi economy is diversifying away from oil extraction and they don't need to pump as much out. But as it's affecting America and the oil supply, which is why Biden was more or less holding the olive branch to Venezuela to try and get more oil, it's affecting the American economy, and this could be the reason. This is South Front, and this was written on the 27th of May this year, and 9,649 views. As you can see, it says US oil reserves rapidly declining, which goes back to this. It's going down, so he's in desperate need of needing more oil for the US economy. It says the US is on the verge of a resource crisis, forcing the White House to actively take action to stabilize the oil market. Crazy gasoline prices, those of you in America have seen that, have made the American public extremely angry, and large companies are losing huge amounts of money due to the unprecedented spikes in the oil market, which means the large companies, they need oil, i.e. energy, to produce things, to move things, and if it's not happening, then the prices go up, because over here in Europe, I've heard that the cost of haulage firms is £25,000 more this year than it was last year. It says the US experienced a huge oil shortage. Last time such a shortage was occurred back in 1987 and 2001. It says currently the US has 532 million barrels of strategic oil reserves. Every week the number of million barrels is decreasing by 5.3 million. At best, the US reserves have 2 years left, which 2 years from now brings the American presidential election. So that should be fun. But from February the 5th to May 20th, reserves fell by another 50 million as the manufacturing sector intensified, which we get that it grew by the fastest pace. Where are we now? However, these are government resources. In addition, some of the oil is in the hands of the private sector. But you can read this article. The US has long tried to implement a plan to redirect oil supplies from Saudi Arabia. So if we jump back to that, that's why Biden's off to kiss MBS's hand. He wants more oil. The US is considering pressuring on Venezuela and Iran as its alternatives. Best of luck with that. And attempts to squeeze more oil out of those countries by various means. And then we've got the comment sections. Is the US a dictatorship? ? No, it's a corporate oligarchy. What right does it have to threaten Saudi Arabia for not producing more oil? Probably a military might. Anyway, over here in Europe, if you want to not pay for your oil and gas and fertilizer and raw materials and metals, etc. with Russia, and you don't want to pay it in rubles, I'm sure the Russians were quite happy to accept gold bullion. So I found this on the dated 6th of February. As you can read, it says gold bullion banks to open vaults in transparency push. It says the London Gold Bullion, which is centuries old, is said to be seeking transparency with plans to reveal how much gold bullion is held in vaults in or around London City according to gold bullion banks. These include gold bullion bars held and controlled by the Bank of England, run by Jews, as reported by Henry Sanderson in the Financial Times. And then there's how much gold. It's gone down, but I don't trust that. And where is it? There we go. An estimated 400,000 large gold bars are stored in the Bank of England's vaults in the city, with some 150 billion according to the LBME. the Bank of England holds the most gold because it acts as a custodian for the holdings of other central banks. But when these other central banks want it back, they twiddle their thumbs and say not a chance. Since the financial crisis, policymakers have been pushing for financial instruments to be traded on exchanges through centralised systems. Now that's all very well, transparency, but this is an interesting article from A Bird's Eye View of the Vineyard, the Saker, Stop the Empire's War on Russia. This was written on April 3rd this year. It's about NATO gold in London. The European countries, they've still got the gold held by the central bank in London, i.e. the Bank of England. After World War II, the idea was to keep Europe's gold bullion safely away from the former Soviet Union and Joseph Stalin, just in case. Some decades ago, current EU member states deposited most of the gold in custody at the Bank of England. In London, now the UK will dare to weaponise the approval of gold reparation requests and other gold-related issues. And in other words, the Bank of England have got the gold supplies of the European countries in the EU, i.e. the European branch of the US State Department, and it's not much chance of it's going to be released. And the bad German experience. It says, does the Bank of England still have all EU's gold bullion, or has it been sold off or loaned as many experts insist? Is the Bank of England willing or able to immediately turn the gold, EU gold, it may still have left to legitimate owners? Who are the legitimate owners of the Bank of England vaulted gold after decades of European reshuffling of political borders? Well, we've all seen the political borders changing. Hungary, for a start, is not the same size as it is today. That's why the Hungarians don't like their neighbours, because they've all grabbed pieces of Hungary. Ukraine's borders are shifting. Who's got ownership of Ukraine's gold? Would the European Court of Justice decide gold ownership, or the British judiciary, or the Bank of England? On what basis exactly? Has the Bank of England lent, swapped, high procreated, leased, leveraged, or encumbered such bullion now lean with other many alleged illegitimate claimies? And then we've got paper gold. Will they return the real gold, or just paper gold that says you own it while they keep hold of the real gold? Anyway, this is a really interesting article, but one country that's managed to skip all that is obedient little Poland. The US is obedient little vassal in Eastern Europe. They got 8,000 their gold bars from World War II. This was on the 5th of December 2019. And just a little article about it. The movement to gold was meticulously planned to coordinate with everybody and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, back to this. If the Americans traded with Russia, then they wouldn't have this problem, or that problem, or that problem. Biden wouldn't have to kiss the hand of MBS in Saudi Arabia in July. And then the US wouldn't have this. It all boils down to the US economy contracting and more women vote than men. We've got the midterm elections coming up in November. What has this to do with MGTOW? Well, nothing much really, but it's just the global picture. Seeing the big picture, if you like, if you step back and look at it logically. Guys can get by with not very much, but women insist on having lots of cash and prizes. That's why MGTOWs will weather this storm, but a lot of women are not going to do it, and there's going to be a lot of upset women in America as this economy shrinks, goes into a recession, or if it goes really bad, it'll turn into a depression. and then we'll all suffer. But Biden, he's on to a loser if he's going to think that Saudi Arabia is going to bail him out. And it all boils down to the oil in America rapidly declining and gas in America reaching $10 a gallon. I should imagine it could go even higher, maybe $15 a gallon. Over here in Britain, it's about £9 a gallon because diesel has gone through the roof. It's costing me a third of what I take home to fill the tank, but I don't use the car that much, so I suspect a lot of Americans are not using their cars as much either. But anyway, that's it for this one. I think we're past the 10-minute mark now, so if you're a guy in America, it's best to batten down the hatches because we're in for a rough few months, and next year it's all probably going to come to a head because you got your presidential election the year after, and we're going to see if Trump can get back in or not. Right, I think we are on the 10-minute mark now. You know the routine: like, dislike, comment, subscribe. It's completely up to you. So until next Monday, that's it for this one. Bye bye.